Hello, guys. This is your boy Vipers here today, and we're going to do another episode of The Game It Takes, episode 44. Uh, and this is going to be a little bit different than, as I'm going to explain right now, this is going to be a little bit different than all the other 43 topics. This is going to, I call this topic Open Talk, February 2021. As this is not really specific, so like, you know how I done other conversations, talking about Rainbow Six invitational predictions, COD predictions, social media, the last 10 to 15 episodes in the last month, they solely focus on a single general big topic. Now, this one, now with open talk, this is going to be a little more free mode. Actually, I didn't call it free mode talk, um, where we're going to kind of talk about what's happening in the world right now, kind of regards to our guest's career and all that fun and his interests. Kind of learn more about a guest as it's a little. That's how I'm going to kind of explain it. Just kind of learn more of a guest, talk about what's happening in the world currently, with various opinions. These are not going to be based off one general topic. So yeah. So we're going to let our guest introduce himself, and then we'll get going.
Hi there, my name is Tyson Tang. I play drums in a band called Red Handed Denial. It's a metal band based in Canada. I do streaming and I also do video editing and I also do writing and I do all sorts of creative artistic things. But my heart mostly relies or mostly lays in drumming with the band and streaming.
That's nice to hear. So we're gonna kind of start with your music. That's where I try to look for musicians for the topic because it was my interest. How did you start getting into music?
With music, it started at a pretty early age for me. I was pretty much born into a music environment. My dad and my mom would always they're very musically inclined. My dad would always he owned an acoustic guitar, which I use to this day, and he's always playing music back then. And my mom was like a karaoke sensation, I guess. She would always sing around the house, and uh, I even had some photos of my mom back when she was younger and in her home country. She was in like a local band as well, and she was so there's a photo of her on stage singing, which is I think is really cool. So I think growing up there was always some sort of musical influence in the background playing.
So were they? How long was your parents in the specific role as the musicians?
I would say for them to consider themselves musicians, they kind of I guess it kind of phased out as they were focusing on raising me as a kid. Uh, because I know that my dad would always play guitar, but then, as more responsibilities come about, that's when the guitar playing kind of settled. But my mom is still singing all the time, but just not on a professional level, I suppose. So
So, so
let's say
where does
maybe
yeah
when I was born.
yeah so I was gonna ask. I might as well ask this now. What country did your mom kind of perform for? Because you said she kind of performed overseas at the time.
Yeah, so she was born and raised in Vietnam.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Same thing as your dad.
Yes, they're both born and raised in Vietnam. They met in Canada. Uh, but my mom's parents are from China, so there's a little difference in cultural upbringings.
Oh, so actually, going to Vietnam topic, since we might as well kind of talk about.
Sure.
Um, what kind of? Well, I might have missed this while you were saying something. What kind of what kind of music genre is usually? What types of music are usually played in Vietnam, and also kind of what your mom did and father did?
Sure. So at the time, my mom was in more of a uh, I say pop rock, but I don't mean it in the sense that we currently hear pop rock. We hear pop rock as a very like upbeat version of rock. But the definition that I'm thinking of for pop rock is more like it's definitely more like 90s type of pop, but with physical instruments rather than digital sounds. So you would hear I don't know. It's a little hard to explain. I guess it's more, if I had to give it a certain topic, maybe like more folk sounding, a little more folk pop.
Can you describe that more? Because I know what folk is, but I don't really know the kind of I heard of folk, but it never really kind of understood it.
So in my definition, it would be the general the general pop music that you hear on the radio back in the day. So something like Backstreet Boys or NSYNC or Spice
Oh,
Girls, that kind of pop sound, but with a little more traditional sound of real instruments and strings, um, less electronics, I guess.
oh, so it's just so it's more kind of well. Never mind. That's kind of I was kind of thinking like, oh, your mom kind of did karaoke, so there's no music, there's like no instruments playing, but that doesn't really make sense. So now we're gonna go to kind of you're young. Did you you play the drums?
Yes.
Was that the first instrument you like? If you remember, what was the first instrument you picked up, and also was it the first one you got hooked onto before you got into the drums full time?
I would say the first instrument was definitely my dad's guitar, just because it was always laying around the house after he's done with it. So I would kind of pick it up and see how it feels and be very careful because obviously it's like it's your dad's, you know, it's like a trophy or prized possession. And you would always get worried when kids are around your prized possessions, just like breaking it. Um, so I played the guitar, but I was never really hooked onto it. And I think maybe the first instrument that I was forced to do was the recorder, because I think in every music school growing up, like everyone's you got to play a recorder at some point and make those really annoying sounds at home for your parents to bear with. For drums, I actually didn't have a chance to even touch a drum kit until high school. Um, Throughout my entire grade school, I was in a music class that had a drum kit in the corner, but I was never allowed to touch it because in order to touch the drum kit, you'd have to be in the class specifically doing drums or doing like orchestra or that like
Yeah.
the big band type stuff. So I was never allowed to do it during middle class, but I've always wanted to, and I kind of held off until high school. A few years later, when I was just listening to music in class and drumming with my fingers, and a friend of mine was like, "Hey, you should try drums." And I was like, "Oh, you know what? I've been thinking about it. Why not? Just go back into it." So we went to the music room in my high school, and we had one of the nicest music teachers ever. His name was Mr. Shuttleworth, and super
Oh
kind,
my god, I was
super.
trying to think. It's like the I forgot the movie that featured Ray Allen. Jesus Shuttleworth. So I'm thinking about basketball. That's a pretty. I like that last name.
So he's incredibly kind, super encouraging, a huge advocate of music learners and inspiration. So if if a student approaches him and says, "I'm interested in learning," he will go to his absolute greatest lengths to ensure that you have a taste of the music world. And so there was this drum kit in the music room that was available all throughout lunch period. Whenever there isn't a class, it's free for anyone. So I always hopped in every lunch period and just sat behind the drum kit, looked like an idiot for an hour, and but I kept doing it, and I think that's what brought me to where I am today. Is just the
Weird.
opportunity to be able to play it.
So not being able to have the were drums kind of really like how expensive are drums because you don't never had the opportunity till till you got to high school or secondary school.
I would say between all most of the instruments, drums are definitely higher up on the expensive list. B- eh, with a guitar, for example, you're paying for a nice piece of wood with some, copper strings on it and little bits of metal here and there. But for drums, you're paying basically for each individual piece. Um, the skins on top of the piece, which is like the piece of like I'm not going to say plastic, but the the drum head. You got the sticks. You also have all the cymbals. The cymbals are probably the most expensive part because it's just big pieces of metal. And then you got the cymbal stands, and they're all meant for hitting. For a guitar, you're strumming the strings. For a woodwind instrument, you're just blowing into it, but a drum kit, you're actually hitting it. The purpose of it is to hit it. So there's definitely a lot of liability in it, and each piece to replace costs a lot. It
Have you
is.
ever broke a drum before? Uh,
Uh, I've broken pieces of the drum kit. I mean, going being in a rock band slash metal band, you definitely go through a lot of cymbals, cracked cymbals, and sometimes you can knock over a stand and the whole cymbal just falls over. Or depending on what type of band you're in, the singer might have a habit of jumping into the drum kit as well while you're playing.
oh my
We've seen
god.
those.
So they just jump, like physically hit, just jump
Physically just
and
jump
like,
into the drum kit. Yeah.
is that common? I never heard of that.
I'd say uh I'd say it's pretty common with some of the more hardcore bands. When the vocalist gets really into it, or maybe at the end of a show, they're like, "Yeah, we're done the show. F this, f that. Let's just throw everything around." Like I know
So,
Green Day does that a lot.
oh, interesting. So let me. So before you got into drums in high school, have you have you well, how long have you been into the drums before the high school? Well, actually, I might have you might have said it already, but how long were you into drums before you start playing it? Before you even like saw the high school kid and all that?
So I would say probably maybe just 3 to 4 years beforehand when I first saw that drum kit in the music room, I was like, "Wow, this looks pretty interesting." And sure enough, it wasn't until I finished that school and went to high school. I would say about 4 to 5 years
Oh, interesting.
between being firstly introduced and actually sitting behind a kit.
So actually, I might as well just ask this right now. Well, actually, no, never mind. So kind of explain after high school, what happened, with kind of your maybe career life, like your career, like college and all that.
Yeah. So during we'll go back a little bit and start off in high school. During high school, I would always be involved with like battle of the bands. I would always recruit some friends that I knew that played instruments with me and just play a few songs on stage for the competitions. And I guess I was very lucky just because a lot of my friends actually in high school were all musically inclined. They all had some interest in playing something. And so we always banded together. We always made some groups. And this one particular band that I was with, we continued to make music even after high school. And with that, we just found a lot of opportunities through college and university. They had their own versions of Battle of the Bands, which is the same exact thing, but just on a higher level of participants. So we entered that, we played, and during those Battle of the Bands, we just meet more people. We connect with other musicians while we're there as well, and it just kind of snowballs. You meet people, the people bring you to the events, you meet more people at those events, and then eventually it led me to playing at a show with my band. I played at a show with the band that I'm currently in, Red Hand in Denial, and the band's been around for a while. Other, completely different members. I joined it much later, but when we first played our show together, I kept in contact with the guitarist, and uh, we would always keep ourselves updated on what's going on, how's your band doing, how's your life doing, all that kind of stuff. He was keeping busy with his band. I was switching between other bands at the time just because the bands that I were in, not everybody's hearts were in it. So it just kind of fizzled out. And then I started my next project. That one kind of also fizzled out. And by that point, uh, in Red Hand in Denial, they lost their drummer. So Chris, the guitarist, and I, we kept in contact, like I said, and he contacted me and said, "Hey, like we lost our drummer. Are you? And I know that your band's not, I know that your band's kind of fizzling out as well. Did you want to come maybe audition for our band?" And I was already a fan of the band, so I was like, "All right, sure, I'll give it a try." And I got in, and ever since then, I've just been rocking out with these people, making music and hopefully changing lives here and there,
That's nice
sending
to
out the
hear.
positive messages.
So actually, we might as well ask this. I was gonna ask this for a couple minutes ago. Just Before we get back onto the redhead, oh, I forgot the name of the band. Sorry, Red Hand
That's okay.
Denial story. How many concerts have you been to as a person, just as a spectator, before before high school and ever since?
Hmm. I'm gonna say not too many because I guess before high school you're kind of limited by age to go to shows because there are those few shows out there they're like 18 plus, or you can't go without an accompanying adult or guardian. So I was limited to a lot of shows. I would say before high school I've only been to maybe just maybe just one show really. It was a Sum 41 show, and they were not as big at the time, so they were playing like in a smaller,
So maybe a nightclub style. Well, it's kind
uh,
of
just one step above nightclub. I would say like a skating rink. It's not quite the stadium. It's not quite a nightclub. It's like an in between.
oh,
Yeah, it was decently sized. It just wasn't massive. And so we went there. I was probably 14, maybe 13, 14 at the time. Went there with my friend Josh, who he was a fan as well. And his mom was the one that chaperoned us at the show. And she kind of just sat down, um, just minding her own business while Josh and I are just rocking out, having fun.
interesting.
Yeah.
I was curious sometimes, maybe going to concert can inspire people to kind of get into music.
Oh, absolutely.
So talking, let's go back. Let's go to Red Hand, Hand Denial. How many? First thing, how many years have you been in the band so far? Before I get to the next portion of it.
Sure. So I've joined the band. The band itself has been around since 2008. I joined around 2000. I'm gonna say 2011 or 12. I think it might have been like maybe the early 2012 is when I joined.
9 years.
Yeah.
So next thing was, were you like when you got recruited? You were you kind of you fizzled out of many projects. Just the passion wasn't there for a lot of guys. Um, Actually, well, first thing you were going to college and university. What was the degree? Just like what were you going for originally, and then before you got into Red Hand Denial?
Yeah. So I went to college for broadcast television because I guess growing up I always had an interest in the film industry. So I don't know why I ended up doing television, but aside from that, I went in. I really enjoyed everything behind the scenes. When I was growing up, I did a lot of video editing. I would always make those those anime music videos where it's like a whole bunch of clips from a show. For in this case, it was Dragon Ball Z, and just pairing that along with some Linkin Park music and get this cool piece of art to show around people. And I think that's what I really wanted to do more video editing. And so I went to television for that specific reason, to do more video editing, writing, um, camera work as well. So like directing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, that's kind of well. Yeah, you mentioned about when I asked you to video editing. Well, that kind of maybe is sometimes late because you have to create videos for Red Hand. Your band a lot of times. So now let's get back into the main. So you fizzled out. How you got recruited because they needed a drummer? Were you kind of high up on the scale of like looking like kind of free agent drummers per se, if it makes any sense?
Like, was I, you mean like, was I the top person that they wanted or something? Or,
Well, were you kind of like a well known, like at the time, a really, you might not known to like the rest of the world, but to like
the
the
community? Or,
community, yeah, community, were you kind of
uh, I wouldn't say so. I would say I was just one of the others in the community. I didn't really, at the time, I didn't really do anything to make myself stick out, or any of the projects I was in were all just, um, I mean, I don't want to discredit them, but it's like, it's nothing of notoriety. Uh, so it was, it was basically my rapport that got me this position, because just knowing Chris and just being nice to each other as well. or just being kind in general. Really, that's sort of really what it is.
So, okay, so now this is gonna kind of be a long. So, kind of describe. This might take a while. You joined in 2012. Kind of describe from that, like the kind of the accomplishments, the events that just the history of your time in Red Hand Denial from 2012, if you can, till today.
The history of it. So I joined in 2012, and within a month of joining, we went into studio. The band had already planned to go to studio. I don't know how without the drummer, but they recruited me and they said, "Hey, we already have all these songs written. Can you learn them? Because we're going into studio in a month." And that was a lot of pressure
How many
because
songs was it?
on this album, I think that album, Stories of Old, I think it might have been 12 tracks. It might have been 12 or 11 tracks, I believe. So I had to learn all those, plus all the previous songs, because, if we ever perform, we have to perform some of the older stuff as well. It was very nerve wracking, mainly because the previous drummer who I was replacing, he's an absolute beast. He's like really good at drums. And so I had to really step up my game and enter this world of like uncomfortability. Because being able to play is one thing, but being able to play it comfortably and with confidence on stage and in studio is a whole different thing. Once when you're in studio, once you hit record, it's like all the nerves break in, and it's very difficult to get your bearings. I was very lucky enough though that with this album, it was I had a little freedom to provide my own input in the song. So, there would be a piece of the song where I'd be like, "Oh, this drum part doesn't quite work out. Can we try this? Can I try this thing that I wrote?" And I tried it, and they liked it, and they're like, "Okay, cool." So already we started developing this kind of workflow in songwriting.
And
So they're
chemistry.
yeah, like they were more confident in my writing, and I was more confident in their judgment as well. Um, so we released the album that was Stories of Old, and uh, shortly after that, we let go of our bassist, who was a a very negative factor of the band. Uh, whenever decisions were made, he would always be the one that's opposing, or he sees the band going in a very different direction, and just not the best person that you want to have in the band, not the best mindset that you want to have. So we had to let him go, and right after letting him go, we realized, hey, like the other four members, we have a common interest in the genre that we're in. So, we all like this type of proggy metal, very riff heavy, headbanging type of genty stuff. And so that's when we started writing that. Um, the bassist that we let go, he was more of the pop punk type of stuff. He likes that type of sound, which is cool. That's cool if you like it sound, but when the other four members want a different sound and he is fighting very aggressively to keep his way, it doesn't work out that way. So we let
Oh
him go.
wait, can I bother you for? Sorry, bother for a second. Kind
Yeah,
of,
for sure.
might as well just for the other YouTube viewers. Can you describe? Since you mentioned another genre, pop punk, can you kind of describe it a little bit before you continue on with your story, the history?
The history of.
No, just the hit, the what you were saying. I just want the viewers to know, kind of what is pop punk, the genre,
Okay, so whenever we
in
say
simple
pop
terms.
punk, in simple terms, we have hopefully I'm going to assume that people are familiar with the punk genre, which is kind of more like angsty, maybe Green Day, a little bit of Blink 182 in there, that type of sound. And then you got the pop element, which is, more upbeat, more catchy type of rhythms, um, catchy choruses as well, something that you can easily sing along to. And then you combine those two elements together.
Okay, then, thank you. Okay, so continue on now.
Hopefully I did justice to that
Yeah.
definition. I'm not
Okay.
sure. So we by that point we let go of our basis, and then we wrote an EP, and it was the Wanderer EP, and that EP kind of rebranded us as a band. to be like, hey, this is the true definition of how we wanted to write our music. Um, it was very systematically written, uh, in the sense that it wasn't organic, it wasn't jammed out. It wasn't written in a practice space. It was more like we all sat behind our computers, wrote it on music sheets, and then pieced it together, and then went to studio. And it worked well for us. It was a great launch pad for us. It was, with that, a lot of the viewers were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so like, this is great. It sounds like your original older stuff." The album before I joined, and it's like it's great. It's going back to that sound. We love it. And then we went on this huge marketing thing as well, just to promote it, and it was very beneficial for us. With that, we landed our first tour. So we did a US tour from that as well. Did a lot of Canadian tours, and we followed up with we followed the success up with the album that we're currently sitting on, which is the Redeemer, and it's kind of like it's a full length album that kind of continues the story of Wanderer, and that's where we are today. And currently, we're writing some more stuff for our next album, which was supposed to release in 2020, but with COVID and all that stuff, a lot of delays happened. So we're kind of back on track for this year.
So I'm just curious, when did the Wonder release, like the album, and then with your kind of your current album with the Redeemer, like with
So
the Gap?
Wanderer came out in 2016. It was an EP of 6 tracks, 5 tracks and one
Single?
five. It was like five full songs, I guess, and then one instrumental song, as to play out like an outro. And Redeemer, I believe, came out in 2019. I'm not too sure. Actually, that's been a while. I think it's 2019.
Oh, okay, just curious.
Yeah, so like a
Yeah,
three year
that's
3 year
probably
gap.
average gap for a lot of albums, especially in the music
Hmm.
industry.
Hmm.
So you going on tours? Just curious, how many? You know, it's kind of ask a couple questions about the tours. How many have you? How many tours have you done as kind of with Red Handed Denial?
Oh, we've been on a few tours by now. I'm gonna say, if I had to piece it together in my head, I'm gonna say maybe like 10 to 12 tours at this point, both Canada and US,
That's nice.
and in various lengths as well. Some of them being like 2 weeks long, some of them being like 4 consecutive days long.
Well, it's a lot of pressure, kind of doing a lot of those shows, especially this describe like the 4 day ones. Kind of, do you just is it like just kind of you just go from like only in the state, or is this you still have to travel, like from out of state or like at least provinces and such, or is it kind of like a local show with the 4 day ones?
Yeah, usually with the 4 day ones, it's for example, if we do a 4 day in Canada, it would be Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, uh, Quebec, and they're all within like 5-ish hours of each other, perhaps. Um, but we don't take any days in between, any days off. So it's like we'll play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for example. So when they're
That's
consecutive like that, we consider them as like smaller tours, smaller runs.
Do you get kind of is it it's unlike the 2 week ones where it's kind of a little more spread out? Do you kind of is a lot more pressure, like a lot more anxiety, or you guys kind of like in the or you guys kind of handle it like just okay, it's just another show, let's rock it out?
With the shorter runs, they're typically, at least on the nature of the ones that we've been on, the shorter ones have been less pressure, mainly because the shorter ones were either playing in familiar grounds or we're playing with familiar people. Um, whether they be tour mates that we've already have have a relationship with, or just these venues that we've played at previously. They're a little more relaxed, and plus, having them being in areas that we know, we're more familiar with, like, for example, parking situations, or uh, nearby gas stations, for example, or how things work in terms of like laws and area, like, if your car breaks down in your hometown, you're a lot more comfortable with how to handle it versus when your car breaks down in a completely unknown area that you've never been to before.
So
And
you,
so,
oh, actually, before you continue,
yeah,
do you guys have like with the drums, mostly with kind of your
yeah,
drums, might not. Do you kind of bring your own drum set to each of these locations every show, even when you got to go across the pond, although it's not really a pond, it's just land still.
it's like a border.
Um, do you just kind of bring your own drum set, or is it kind of set up with each location prepped up?
um, for a majority of the shows, I've provided my own drum kit. Uh, it They can be discussed beforehand during tour planning because some drummers, they like to contact other drummers and say like, hey, do you want to share certain pieces? Like, I'll provide this and that, you provide this and that, and we can kind of amalgamate our kits on stage. Or, for example, if I'm the headlining band, which is like the main act of the night, the final act, sometimes depending on who I'm touring with, I could be like, hey, I'm cool with just providing my kit for everyone for the whole night, so all of our tour partners can just use my drum kit. Or I'll be like, hey, um, are you guys comfortable with using your own drums, for example? But for the most of the tours that we've been on, I've brought my own kit across the border, and it's it takes up a lot of space in the vehicles, but it's necessary
Oh, so you
just
never
to.
fly to your concert? Well, you can't. I don't know how you're gonna handle
We
it.
flew in
Oh,
2020, January 2020. We played a show that involved flying, and for that show, I borrowed the kit from the other band just because they had the rental kit. They were also this show in January 2020 was a show from, I think it was Canada. It was us Canadians. Uh, the other band was Japanese, and a third band was from, I think it was from Denmark. And so all three bands were flying in, and so the production company that booked us, they were the ones that provided the equipment that we all used.
oh, well, that's good. That's interesting. Because I'm
Yeah.
just that's a lot of driving because
Oh
that's
yeah.
kind of hard to like you can transport a guitar like the guitars across it's but drums it's got to be impossible.
It's very
Just the
bulky
kind
to bring stuff.
yeah
Yeah.
you can't make like a mini drums that can perform the same functions like you
Yeah.
do. So talking of you have those concerts and those tours and all that, can you any kind of stories about like where this might sound where you kind of like any interesting funny stories, maybe almost scary stories during your times on tours
One
moments?
that pops into my head was a venue at, uh, I think it was New Brunswick, Canada, which is a little further east. And when we arrived at this venue, it was a little strange. The entire area had a flood or heavy rain, maybe like a day or two before. So a lot of the town was kind of like flooded out. So getting into it was already a problem. But once we arrived there, it was like a house. It was a really, really, really fancy house uh, that had a second option to be a venue as well. Like all the music equipment was there. The floor was very beautiful, lights, all that kind of stuff. It was a house with a venue attached to it, essentially. When we arrived there, um, we were informed that there might not be anybody showing up to the show, mainly because the flood happened. So there wasn't any promotion that went out according to the venue, according to the show promoter. So we were like, okay, you know what? If there's no show tonight, we'll just treat it as like a day off, and we'll just crash here because we were going to stay there anyways. The venue, the promoter offered his space, so we stayed there. And as the night progressed, it got more and more terrifying. Uh, the venue's in the middle of nowhere. It's in the woods. You
Oh,
could there's no GPS signals to get there. There's no street lights. You just have to weave your way through the woods to get there. So we're already like, stranded people, which is already a good setup for a horror movie. We got there uh, at night. We were getting really scared just because it was really dark on the roads because there was like one or two street lamps, but like, very, very far away from each other. At one point of the night, half of the team, we sent half the team to go and get pizza, and they disappeared for about 2 hours getting pizza. We tried calling them, nobody picked up. Um,
You were freaking out.
we were freaking out. We were at this point we were convinced that they were just gonna kill us. Like, half the team is gone, so this other team here is like the victims, and then maybe the other team comes back, and all hell breaks loose. We were They returned. Fortunately, they returned. They got lost several times, finding this random pizza store in the middle of nowhere. But at nighttime is when it got really creepy, just because we were, we were all sleeping around the venue, and they had couches and pillows and everything. It was a very nice setup for us. But we were all using the internet, and at some point, the venue just pulled the plug on the internet, and so at this point, we had no signal to call out. We had no internet connection to reach the outside world. We were definitely, definitely isolated from the rest of the world at that point in the night. At a point where one of our tour mates, he was the guitarist of the other band. He was freaking out. He was ready. He was sitting in the car. He was ready to like turn it on and drive off. He's like, "We gotta go. We gotta get out of here." And we're like, "No, it's okay." It's like, there's 12 of us here, or 12. There was about, yeah, about like 8 of us, 8 to 10 of us here. We could take them on if they ever try to
Minus,
come in.
well, the original number was probably 14 because, the probably some guy, the Pete's, there was some other, might not the Pete's, I don't know, some, whatever. There's probably another band that was supposed to be with you, and then they kind of just got
They
lost.
got lost as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Michael Myers went after them.
Oh no. Some truly scary stuff. And I think that was the scariest night of our lives, just because we were on the verge of we were cut off from everything. And there's nothing scarier than being isolated from the world, especially when you're on tour in a completely foreign environment.
We no, this might seem odd. Where you get how, like if you remember, how much were you getting paid to do that show? Because that's kind of risky, knowing that everything anything fucks up, you could be dead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we died, I don't think the payment would have mattered anyway.
Yeah,
But as from what I remember, we actually got paid very well for that show. Um, I don't know if it was just because the venue was kind of knew what we were getting into, and they're like, "Here's your compensation. Let's just not speak of this ever again," or if it was like this venue was just one of the venues just had money. People that venues that have money and kind of flex on their money, but don't provide the numbers, I guess. But in terms of the contract, they fulfilled their contract, so no
Oh,
complaints on that part.
oh, okay. So have did you ever think, like, since I found you via streaming, you didn't think of, like, never thought about live streaming the show to your fans? I know maybe it might not have been a good idea. Well, probably would have been kind of really nerve wracking with the
Mhm.
the internet shutting off and all that. It's like, oh, make sure not that, but you never thought about, just as an alternative, knowing that there was not going to be any fans, or you just kind of said, okay, whatever.
For that show at the time, no, we didn't live stream. So that tour happened in 2016 or 2017, and at the time, I didn't really have a foot in Twitch at all. I didn't really even think about streaming at all. I didn't stream any shows until maybe 2019, when I started getting more and more into Twitch, and then that's when I started. I would just turn on my phone, leave it on the side, and just film the stage while we play our set.
Okay.
Yeah.
So next question, next thing I'm gonna ask, well, is kind of, I might as well just ask for numbers. How many, like, for your recent show? Well, what your recent shows and all that, kind of like, what are the average number of people? The number of people, fans who, like, fans who come out to each of the shows.
Yeah, sure. So the on our our last shows, which were January of last year, uh, we would have around, I'd say to like maybe 70 to 100 ish, give or take. There might be just a tiny, tiny bit more. Maybe like 70 to 110, I think might be a more convenient number, depending on each location. Um, there's a lot of factors that go into it, including like what day of the week it is. You know, if it's like a Monday, there might not be as many people. And some cities, for example, we played a show. I think the very last show that we played was in Phoenix. Uh, no, not Phoenix. It was Arizona. It was Scottsdale, Arizona. So
Which is basically kind of Phoenix because that's basically the yeah kind of Phoenix.
right. But I know that when we were playing that show, a lot of people were saying like, why aren't you guys playing in like Phoenix itself? So I think with the amount of people that were saying it, you could kind of put two and two together and be like, oh, more people would have came out if we actually played in Phoenix rather than like outside Scottsdale, for example. So
Are you
like
usual
factors like
get
those.
yeah? Are you usual get like might as well ask this. Kind of what type of venues do you play in? Also, kind of do you usually play like in the surrounding? Like, do you usually play in like the main city of the metropolitan area? You kind of play outside it because it might be easier for the local crowd, or it might not. It might be a little bit harder to get some of the main crowd in there with other competition.
Right. So for a lot of the shows we play in like proper venues that are spaces that are meant for performances rather than, we do get the occasional bars here and there that have a stage on the side, but for the most part, they are venues, like venues that have bars, not bars that have venues, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of the location, I think the majority of them have been just slightly outside the city uh, because of A, the pricing, and B, the availability of the venue itself. So, or a venue that's in the metropolitan area is more likely to be booked quicker because there's more acts that want to go through that venue. So it might be a little tougher to book.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's I thought a lot of factors come into it. So you kind of talking getting off the concert track. I want you to kind of you being in Red Hand Denial, knowing the people for many years now, 9 years. With your current members, kind of give I don't know how I want to say this without sounding kind of describe the personalities of your members so we can know like the fans can know what could we expect from the lead singer, the drummer, you and the guitarist, like the
Sh-
personalities.
Sure. So right now we're down to four members. We lost a guitarist mid partway through last year just because he left to do his own. He had to like tend to his family stuff. So we're down to four members. Myself, I would say, I don't know, I'm the childish one of the band. I'm the childish one, but when it comes to serious matters, I can really step up and be like take the leader role. Uh, meld. I can mend into different situations. Chris, our guitarist, he's the quiet one of the band. He's very self-reserved. Um, he's he's very excitable, but a lot of times when you see him at shows, he's very, very reserved to himself, very kind as well, uh, incredibly caring. A lot of his conversations will be more about like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Kind of that kind of stuff. Um, he's the oldest in the band, and I think every time during a tour he always gets sick at least once, and we have to like stop by and make sure he's okay. He's not that much older, but his I think his mentality is a little older, but he's the quiet one of the band. We have Dom, the bassist, Dominic. He is a very uh I would say he's very extroverted,
Outgoing.
outgoing. He's very it's funny because he would be a little timid. He seems a little. like meek if you were to approach him, but once you get into him, he's like the loudest one of the group and like shouting and just out of excitement and just he's the athletic one of the band as well. He plays rugby, so he's got that kind of jock jock behavior, jock mentality to him, just a little bit.
You
And
gotta hate it
last,
sometimes. Some little bit of Jack.
yeah, sometimes it kind of gets in the way, but for the most part, he's got a lot of heart. He's got a lot of heart, which is really good. You can tell he really cares about his stuff. And then we have Lauren, she's the singer slash vocalist, screamer, singer, and she is. I was gonna say like she's responsible, but also not responsible. She's responsible in terms of like she knows what she has to get done, and she does it. And at the same time, um, I feel like a lot of times we have to like baby her and make sure she doesn't get into trouble or just be like, hey, because as the vocalist of the band, you technically are the face of the band. The you are the image that the band creates. So we need to make sure that she's in the right mindset, in the good mood. But I don't mean to say that in the sense that we're taking care of her. I'm just saying like we got to just keep her in check all the time, as with all of us, really. But she is incredibly adorable, super cute, super relatable all the time. Very welcoming. Uh, Great people. I don't know. I'm very blessed to be in this band just because we all gel very well with each other. Um, and it really shows when we're in tour vehicles, when we're stuck in a van for 7 hours a day. Um, I think that's when you're really being tested on how well you guys can get along with each other. And I'm very happy that our band does get along very, very well on stage, off stage, in the van, during COVID, all that kind of stuff.
So kind of since this is more common for gamers, do you guys
Yep.
kind of like you guys kind of live together? Like you guys have a house where you guys kind of practice, like kind of live together, or you guys kind of just separated?
We all are separated. We all live in our own cities right now. I live downtown Toronto. Lauren is like an hour drive away from me. Dom and Chris are about 30 minutes away from me. Um, our 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 consistent common space is our practice. We do have a practice space, and so whenever we go for tours or we're preparing for studio, that's where we all congregate and just prepare ourselves. So I guess that's where our common ground is. But mostly
Okay,
we're all separated.
you guys make content together. Um,
Yes.
kind of describe it. Besides the music realm.
So I think a lot of it is just the music that we create together,
Yeah.
whether it is like our own solo projects that we need input from the others or any of that kind of stuff. Lauren, Myself and Lauren are streamers. She started streaming around maybe November last year. I've been streaming since
2019.
I think so,
Oh,
yeah,
that's what you said.
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and Dom and Chris, they're only starting to get into streaming now. So Chris, he's starting to get interested. He does a lot of music production, so he wants to do that for his streams. Just kind of show him how he makes music. And Dom also wants to do some streaming, some gaming related streams. And yeah,
So going into that,
yep.
kind of were you the one that introduced them to kind of streaming, knowing that it could kind of help the band overall, or they just kind of got into it without on their own because of whatever? I'm
I,
trying to
I
say.
would say, I would say I might have been the one that put the idea in their head, just because I started the streaming earlier, and throughout all most of the recent tours, I would stream the show, the performances, or I would stream randomly during the day. Like if we were all walking around a Target and doing some shopping, for example, I would just turn on the phone and I would start streaming, and then I'd show Dom, and Dom would like talk to the chat for a bit. So I think in I might have planted the first seeds in their head for streaming, but definitely wasn't until COVID where when COVID happened, all the musicians aren't playing shows anymore, so they all decided to hop onto Twitch. So Twitch has a huge influx of musicians as of 2020. So I guess Dom and Chris are also interested in that as well.
So I'm guess well, you stream the longest. I use might sound odd. Are you the one with the most like you know kind of describe? Are you the one with the most first thing? Are you the one who has the kind of just the most followers? And second thing, how like just kind of the average numbers per stream?
I second most followers. My
Wow.
singer, my singer Lauren, she is like I said, she is the face of the band, and because of that, she has all the popularity, all the fame going to her. And she also has her own like music solo projects, and she's featured on a lot of guest vocals and all that kind of stuff. So there, there are a lot of Lauren fans. And when she decided to start a Twitch, I think within the first day she hit like 3,000 followers. Uh,
Wow, special.
within at least within the first week or something. She's already a partner within a month. She became a Twitch partner within like 2 months, I think. Um, so it's incredible for her, and like well deserved. She worked super hard on all that. I think where she sits right now, she might be at 5K followers. I'm not. I think, uh,
That's
and
not bad
that's
for first 3 months.
yeah, right. Like I said, a lot of it comes from her YouTube following, and I think on YouTube she's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know the numbers on her YouTube, but they are very, 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 very high. So I'm second place. I'm currently sitting at 1.3, I think, 1.3 or 1.4 followers. Doing it for doing it for 2 years. Haven't When I first started, I was really learning the ropes of streaming. I would say I didn't really stick to a certain formula until maybe the past few months, and I think once I stuck to that formula, that's when the numbers started rising a little more. For me, average viewers, they sit between 15 to 25 whenever I do a stream. I don't really do much promotion for my streams anymore. I know at a point I did, where I would go on my Twitter or go on my Facebook and be like, streaming in an hour, or streaming in 2 hours. I don't really do that anymore. I just kind of like just go live, and Discord would automatically tell people whenever I go live. With Lauren, her average uh looks like they are. I think they're like. I think hers is like 130 to 200 per stream. I think that's what she's
That's
sitting at.
yeah, it's when you get all the attention, it's hard to get come
Yeah.
on, I want all the viewers. Come
Yeah.
on, man, I play the drums. I got some horns. But the singer is always kind of the main spotlight, and that's kind
Yeah.
of happens with along with kind of the other Twitch streamers who do music.
Yeah. And it helps to be like a very kind and gentle person on stream as well. Like, people initially come to the stream for the content, but they stay for the streamer is what I've always been told. So anyone that's, even if you're completely new to Lauren, have never seen any of her videos before, have never listened to any of her songs, if you come to her stream and generally hang out, like you'll still enjoy it just because she's a really nice person to talk with and all that kind of stuff on stream.
Yep, that's kind of important for kind of any upcoming streamers and all that. Which
Oh yeah.
so next, what was it? Oh my god, I forgot. So COVID happened March 2020. It's the world's going to shit. I'm sorry if any kid viewers who just heard me swear, who follow the band. Did you guys have you guys done any kind of live stream shows?
We have not. We've always talked about it, but the conclusion always ended up being the the effort and time that it takes to put on a live stream show can be better put towards new material. So because to do a live show, you'd have to book a venue, you'd have to set it up to be internet
Oh no, sorry, no,
friendly.
that's not what I meant. Not the live stream show. What I meant was you guys performed your song like as you four as a band, performed on stream, your music.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, same deal. I think with that one, it's a little harder for us to find a convenient time for all four of us to work things out, just because we all have our own schedules at this point, and uh, to make it work on stream, unless we're all in the same room, if we were to do it on Zoom, for example, there's just so much of a delay between everything that it's hard to find a common timing to perform these songs.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like if I were to start playing a drum beat, I think there's always like that 2-3 second delay before the guitarist sees it on his end. And so he'll be playing guitar to my drum beat. It'll be on time for him, but then for me to hear his guitar, that's where the delay starts to happen. So I'll hear his guitar 2 seconds later from when he plays it, which is 2 seconds off of when I'm playing. So then there's a 4 second delay, and it's just a big mess if we were all doing it on Zoom.
So
Uh,
you got to do it. Yeah, you got to do it together.
we have to do
That's
it together, but we want to follow the quarantine rules just so that the world could get better, so that we could be back on the road.
I was just curious. Sometimes going into quarantine, so okay, maybe we can. We're not making all this money. We're not. We would love to produce our music content to the world. Um, to our fans. And,
Mhm.
it's we can't really know how much music unless you kind of do on social media. So, maybe some people want to listen to the nostalgia of Red Hand Denial. Maybe as throughout its history, and maybe just do it on a live stream one day. Play it out, just for fun. Just so we get maybe have the fans kind of be happy that there's music being played. Yeah, that's some people might do that, but again, it's kind of hard to set it up sometimes. It
Mhm.
does, yeah, Zoom won't work because you got like four separate camera, and that's not. But you guys, I think it's a possibility. It's something you can consider. Um, but I'm not going to take control of your band. It's something, it's just the idea that you guys maybe it will help your content grow a little bit since
Right.
maybe help have new people discover
Yeah.
like a live performance just from your practice studio,
Right.
um or like maybe just live stream like a practice session and see, maybe not the practice session because that could leak music. That might not be a good idea, but I think it's a possibility that could help. I think
Yeah.
just kind of
Well,
get new fans.
during COVID, what we have done in place of the live practice or live shows is we've worked on like cover songs. We've during COVID time we released a telephone cover, Lady Gaga's Telephone. We did a cover of that, which surprisingly did very well. We got a lot of new fans from that one, a lot of newcomers. And during Christmas time, we did a cover of This Christmas, like a metal version as well. And those two really helped us out in terms of you know the live shows might not get the new fans, but definitely the covers will. And the way that we do it, the way that we do the covers, it's very purposely meant to say, hey, like we're doing these covers during COVID time, so let's all uh let's all cooperate, kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now let's kind of, I'm going to kind of switch it to kind of your what you kind of sent me with the interest and all that. So kind of how, like, were you a gamer, like like as young, or you just kind of got recently into investing into gaming?
Oh, I was a gamer very young. Basically when I was born, there were already consoles in the house, so I'm pretty sure that my mom and dad were already playing games before I was born. When I was born, I remember my earliest memories playing NES with my mom. Um, we would play Tetris together on NES. We would play uh, Ninja Turtles. They had their little arcade game. So Ninja Turtles. I think this was Ninja Turtles 2. I think it was called like Project Manhattan or something. And my mom and I, we would like always play and like beat that game, go through all the boss fights. Um, Somewhere down the line, we got a Sega Genesis, and that one surprisingly enough, I played that one with my dad until he stole the console. I don't know where it is right now. He has it somewhere. but but definitely growing up, there was a lot of video games in the house. I think they really wanted to um, find ways to spend time with their kid, um, and maybe these video games were like a hand me down from an older cousin or something. But definitely played a lot of Nintendo games growing up with my mom and dad.
Kind of. Do you speaking of gaming? Do you kind of stream video games, or you just kind of still focus on the music, like just streaming music with the drums and all that?
So the music streams are actually pretty recent. I've been doing video game streams since I first started streaming. The music didn't, the drum streams didn't happen until midway through last year because that's finally when I got like a electric kit and I had the ability and time and focus to kind of set it up for myself. So August is when I first, no, July I think is when I first started my first drum test streams, and maybe it was November, maybe it's around October of 2020 is when I finally said, okay, we're good. I have the system working out for me now. Let's start doing more drum streams. So definitely the game streams were first.
Okay, this especially Twitch being a gaming platform and the music
Yeah.
industry, being some having a decent amount of viewers, I usually kind of average about 30 to 50K. But I don't average. Maybe it's higher.
Yeah.
If you got someone famous on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, just curious.
Yeah. It's
So
definitely much easier to get a game stream going than it is a music stream. A lot less setup involved.
okay.
Yeah.
So next thing I got for you, I was gonna talk about the free games that you mentioned you like playing, but I'm gonna kind of skip that. That was so kind of talked about the other hobbies that you said. We're gonna start with writing. Was it
Mhm.
the writing was interested? Was the writing for music or was it for kind of other stuff?
All sorts of writing, really. I do enjoy writing for music. I enjoy writing short stories. Like I read a lot of Stephen King novels, and I love the horror aspect of writing. So I like to write stuff like that. And actually, it wasn't. Maybe it was like a few weeks ago. I was going through my my drawers and shelves, and I found all these old scripts that I used to write back when I was younger in high school. Just like funny little skits and stuff like that. And so yeah, I like writing short stories. I like writing screenplays or scripts. I like writing um songs. Hell, I even like writing emails. It's weird. It's a weird, like, I'm not gonna say fetish, but it's something weird that I enjoy writing emails, whether for corporate or for the band or just, yeah, I don't know. Writing. English is fun.
And let's actually, well, I'm gonna move the laptop while I get my dinner ready. As I'm gonna kind of, this is gonna be a little annoying for the viewers, but let me unplug my audio too. Um, so let me talk about the video editing purpose. I'm just
Mhm.
curious on that one.
The purpose of I like to create art. I like to video editing tells a lot of the story, and the way that you pace things or the way that um the way that things are cut, even the coloring, they're so very important to storytelling. And I think that's one of my interests on top of writing because I like to tell a story. I think editing does tell a lot of it as well.
Okay, just curious on now. Like
Hmm.
what? So you mentioned about anime, making those type of videos. Have you recent like do you kind of like help with video editing for the music videos a lot of times, or is it you just have someone else does it who doesn't work with?
For the band,
Yeah.
yeah, the band. Depending on the project, there are a few music videos that I've edited, and there are a few that I've participated in the editing with, whether it be like a further draft or an earlier draft. And then there are some that the director just completely takes hold of it. It really depends on the project. So some of the videos were filmed by a certain production company, and that production company wants to do all the editing. So we're like, cool, it's all yours. You do what you want. And then there are some where it's like, oh, I have an idea. Can I just do it? And they're like, sure. So a lot of different versions.
You actually wait a second. Not no. You if just say you have any like if say the music like hopefully this doesn't happen with you guys, but just say the band breaks up, you know, long career. Do you think about getting into video editing, knowing that you kind of well kind of with and all along with kind of broadcasting, like get back into that like video editing slash broadcasting interest, you know, just in case the band breaks up or something like that, or is it just you can still continue with music?
I think there's definitely a lot of options available. I mean, if the music doesn't end up working out, I could always attempt another musical project. I could always go back into, I could always go back into the industry that I used to work on before leaving to do the band full time. I could definitely do stuff that's like freelancing, freelance photography, freelance videography, video editing, for example. Some like I know a lot of friends that work in video editing houses, so I could definitely hit them up as well. Just like the connections that you make through college and onwards, you definitely hold on to those because they help progress the life later.
Yeah, that's a good. That's kind of important to have those connections. So we're
Mhm.
gonna. Thanks for kind of telling me all the information. Knowing, learning about your gaming and interests, hobby, career. Let's. So I got three questions that free open talk extra topics. These are kind of related to kind of current situations around the world. Um, Actually, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have two. I'm gonna skip one of them because that might not be a good idea to ask. That was supposed to be for someone else, but if so, kind of, what do you like with there's been a winter storm happening around the U.S. It's been, especially in Texas, where it's been shutting down. You know, massive winter storm, power outages, really cold, people not having air conditioning, having to sleep in like really cold weather. Kind of this, like, did you guys like to similar to that situation that's happening? Did you? How's your situation in Toronto at the moment with the weather during that period?
Um, in Canada, it's actually not as bad. I mean, even right now, I'm looking outside and like a lot of the snow is melted. Specifically in Toronto, we've been getting really fluctuant weather. One day, last night actually, there was a big snowstorm last night, and you look outside now and you can never tell that there was a snowstorm that happened last night. It's really messing with my health because when weather fluctuates, I get really sick because my body doesn't know how to adjust to the temperatures. But, yeah, in terms of Texas getting that snowstorm, which is really unprecedented and just out of character for Texas, really. Eh, for us here, it's nothing has changed. Canada's known for having cold weather, cold extreme weathers. It it's been the same, really. If anything, there's been less snow than previous years for us.
Oh, it's just it'd probably have been easier to ask this question for someone at a winter place, but again, some people like, do you just kind of it's okay, it's just cold, you know, you kind of more prepared with it than like the you're probably more prepared than other people in Texas.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an annual thing for us, all our winters are very snowy and cold, and our summers are very hot, and, living in Canada my entire life, it's just like it's just another thing, like, it's not something that you're like it's not out of the ordinary to see snow in March or uh, in late October, you know? We've definitely I remember there was one Halloween that there was, like, slight snowfall, and that was weird to us, but at the same time, it's like, "You know what? Winter's on the way, so it's not that bad."
So just say you're in a similar like how would like for your like just say you're in a similar situation like Texas, where it's like a panic attack, like
Mhm.
no like how concerned would you like would you freak? I don't. I'm trying to kind of come up with this like way to ace. You know, power isn't working. You know, it's hard to get groceries and stuff. Like, how like would you be stressed out? Well, that's a stupid question. I'm trying to just see how I want to word it, but
How would you handle it kind of thing?
yeah, like you think it's you already have experience like for someone who lives already in the cold environment, like just
Mhm,
has that situation, just like Texas where the power shuts out and it can't get to some places like due to heavy blizzard and all that.
mhm, mhm. I mean, being stressed out definitely does not help anyone's situation, anywhere. I think what does help out is just looking at looking to other countries and even movies and seeing what they do during snowstorms. For example, I assume that Texas doesn't have winter tires for their vehicles, but you guys have an older method, which a lot of people used to do before winter tires, is we put like chains around the tires because the chains, as the tires are rolling, the chains kind of like latch onto the snow and kind of propels it forward, kind of thing. Um, a lot of countries they put salt on the roads to melt the snow as well.
That's
Yeah,
kind of usually common with ice.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm just curious on that one.
yeah.
So you just kind of handled the situation and said, okay, I got alternatives. So, I watched a lot of films,
Right.
the what's it? It's a 2004 movie. It's like where it's like they went to like the South Pole and like some it split off and then there was like 50 like just like a skyscraper amount of snow in like New York City. I forgot the movie name.
Day
And
after tomorrow.
yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last thing, actually, this is gonna be the last thing I'm gonna ask before we kind of close off the podcast here. COVID-19. I asked this a lot on a lot of these podcasts, but COVID-19 has been, with the vaccines currently coming out. How has Toronto handled this situation at the moment? And I'll kind of explain how it's handled in my state because
Oh
it's
no. um, so in Toronto, I would say a large majority is complying. They are complying with we have a strict lockdown enforced by the government, but and you're only allowed out technically if you're like for exercise or for um
parents.
yeah, for errands like for groceries or stuff like that, like for important stuff. But they aren't really enforcing it otherwise. Like there aren't like police patrolling the streets and telling you to go back inside the house or something like that. Like, everyone's minding their own business. I think there's a high level of trust if the government's like, please stay home. A lot of people are like, yeah, let's just stay home because, this is a together type thing. We're all working together to make to let the world recover so that we could all go back out later. On the flip side, I don't know if they still do it, but there was a time up until at least I don't know, at least up until like November, December, where there's a large group of people that would march down the streets and they're like anti-maskers and they would just like have these demonstrations or parades or marches or whatever. And it's ridiculous. And they're just, they're like very strong deniers of the mask and thinking that these vaccines are not what you think they are and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, and they're the ones that are slowing things down in Canada. They're the ones that are disregarding a lot of health precautions and just going out, trying to entering stores without masks and just visiting their families, not caring about any of the rules, any of that kind of stuff. But for the
So
most part, Toronto's doing well.
yeah. So you just kind of been just extra safe and just you as really extra safe, wear a mask even when around family, like no matter what.
Yeah, like yeah, I've been keeping it very safe. The whole washing your hands thing, wearing your mask, staying 6 feet apart from everyone. Whenever we do go to someone's place, we're usually hanging around outside, or there's not too many people at the place. Like maybe at most, I'll be in a house of like three other people at most.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of as actually, first I'm gonna ask two things. Extra with that. Are you interested? have you been fascinated, interested in getting the vaccine when it releases to the general public? Just say the first day it comes out, in Canada.
Yeah, I'd be interested in it. I think currently all of the this first run that they're doing, all the tests seem to be um, working out, and I wouldn't mind getting the vaccine if it's available for me. It's kind of like an extra precautionary thing, just to help myself, especially as a musician. I'm going to be you go out there and you're touring and you're playing at venues that are full of people, like crowding around and getting all sweaty,
Very,
nasty, and dirty and
something
stuff like
very
that.
important. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So I would be down to get one.
And second thing, it's kind of mental. How is the COVID-19 situation affected, like, your life career-wise and mental health-wise?
Um, Career wise, obviously my bands we're not able to do a lot of the stuff right now. So career wise, it's a little shaky just because you really just want to get back on the road. You really want to make more music. You really want to like, make some movements. But over time, I've kind of found the alternative in streaming and in like even merch. Like I've also like launched my own merch in accordance to my Twitch community as well, and all that's been working out. It's been very supportive people, just been chipping in, with like donations, bits, subscriptions, all that kind of stuff. The YouTube is starting to pick up as well, which is really nice. My YouTube channel. So career wise, it sucks that that I'm not able to do what I love to do, but it's also nice to be able to figure out an alternative situation that is actually working out. Um, in terms of mental health, it's same idea. It's a little rough at first because you know to it's like I mean I can never relate, but it's I could assume it's kind of like a drug. Someone who is addicted to drugs and suddenly being told no, you can't do drugs anymore. It's kind of like you really want to do it, but there's a stronger force against you to stop you, and it's very difficult at first. But then over time, you start to like get used to it, and then maybe you could even find like the positives out of it. COVID really helped because basically it allowed me to be comfortable at home and it allowed me to focus a lot on myself and like what what movements can I make to improve my life after COVID. And even during COVID, my fiance, she's been at home as well. So like her and I, we've spent a lot of time together at home, and we've been able to really develop our relationship and like bond even more, just because we have so much time to like talk to each other and all that kind of stuff, and just understand each other. So mentally, it's nice to be with someone to be stuck with someone in quarantine that can really bring out the best in you and just really help you out as well.
Actually, I want to add one. Actually, I want to kind of explain my COVID situation.
Yeah.
With kind of what. But I want to add one more question to that, to the podcast, since you mentioned the fiance part. Um, I've in Florida. It has been a shitstorm.
Ooh,
It's really odd. Because actually the gym part, actually, you don't have to wear a mask if you're working out. And
really?
actually, yeah, it's and actually the gyms, like I lived in Michigan, and the gym I went to didn't open up till September, and they had unlimited, but they've allowed decent capacity at the gym I go to in Florida. It opened on May 19th, 2020. So that was 2 months after, I think 2 months and a week after it announced that everything was kind of closing and all that.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of people. I went to, I think, a fishing town, and people were not really wearing masks. I think not wearing masks in gas stations. The workers. It's different if you go to, like, just kind of like a city, not like a rural town where it's just kind of, same thing when you mentioned with the anti-maskers. It's I think like at this moment, like this moment, it's kind of returning to normal. I think just because I think the first thing as much as 500 as recently announced, I think a day ago, 500K people have died from COVID in the U.S. I think just people, I think just because people are thinking, oh, 99% survival rate, but you still don't want to spread it because that 1%, could be, that I think that's people have been less, with the vaccine, people are just going to be more open. There's still, still a lot of parties that probably shouldn't happen, but I think people are usually just kind of okay. It's not. This should not be much issue because there's going to be a vaccine releasing soon
Mhm.
to the public, and it has. So yeah. One more thing I want to ask is kind of your fiance. You said as I think I don't know, I don't remember. I found an Instagram post, so I was trying to figure out that you're gonna get married in South Korea, and I wanted to describe this, kind of describe the like how did you meet your fiance, and kind of what made your decision to head to South Korea for the wedding next month.
So we met here in Canada a few years back. We actually met online and went on a few dates afterwards and realized, hey, this might actually work out. So we started dating. We've been dating for I think 3 years now at this point. 3 years. And the full story is when we decided to get married, we were actually supposed to have two weddings. So the first wedding was supposed to be in Canada in 2020, and then the second wedding was supposed to be in Korea 2021, mainly because the Canadian wedding will be mostly my friends and family, and the Korea wedding will be mostly her friends and family. Just because a lot of the people can't fly to one or the other. Um, so when COVID happened, we had to postpone the wedding. We moved the Canadian wedding to this year, and we actually, as of last month, we moved it again. So the Canadian wedding is going to be next year. So that means that now the Korean wedding is happening first. And so that's still happening as scheduled, mainly because A, it's in terms of COVID, it's being handled a lot better in Korea. The numbers are a lot lower. Everyone's being safe. In Asia, in general, like people have been wearing masks for years, even before COVID happened, just because
Air pollution,
a little bit of air pollution and a little bit of just everyone's more um,
smart.
selfless. They want to benefit other people. If someone is sick in Japan, they'll wear a mask just because they don't want to get other people sick. Because everyone knows that once you're sick, you can't go to work, and work culture is very important in Japan, for example. Um, so yeah, people have been wearing masks for years, and that's why COVID, it's not really that much of a difference. Now with COVID, it just means more people are wearing masks than before. Uh, so we're doing it in Korea first next month. Next week, actually, we're flying to Korea next week.
Oh, thank God I got you this week.
Yeah.
Uh, so is it just gonna? You're not gonna? They're gonna bring your actual like just gonna combine it into. You thinking about bringing your family to the South Korean wedding, or is it, you're just gonna kind of let it just for the Canadian wedding?
So originally we left it to say, "Hey, family, like whoever wants to come, you guys are more than welcome to come." Just I know that COVID is kind of affecting a lot of people's decisions. If you want to come, you're more than welcome to. If you don't, no hard feelings. Um, that was the initial plan, but later we actually found out that with Korean travel, you're actually not allowed to go unless it's your wedding or your kid's wedding. So family members can't even go. Like cousins can't go, friends can't go. Only I can go, and only my parents can go, and that's who's going. So it's just gonna be me, the fiance, and my mom's gonna go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was trying to come up with something. So that's when you like. Is that when you're gonna be like with that legal? Is that gonna be where it's like the legalization of like marrying, like kind of just it's gonna be full scale, or are you just gonna like when is it gonna be like legalized? Is it gonna be in the South Korea one? Because it might be odd because it's international. Like it's not even gonna be signed. or is it just gonna be in 2022 where it's just gonna be like kind of official? It's probably gonna be next month, right?
So, from my understanding, when we get married in Korea, we'll get the paperwork, which we can then bring that paperwork over to Korea and or bring the paperwork from Korea over to Canada to make it like more official. So we'll be like
Oh, that's
legally
cool.
married in both countries, or
Oh,
legally married considered by both countries.
um, and last thing before we end it off, were you shitting your pants when you said, "Will you marry me?" Or
Was I shitting my pants? Thankfully, I went to the bathroom beforehand, so I didn't have to. But I wasn't nervous. Um, so I was originally going to ask her. I had the ring in my pocket the whole day. Her and I, we went on a date to where we first had our date. It was at a restaurant, and we were sitting there eating. And I was thinking about asking her then, but it just didn't feel right because I don't know, like another table next to us was like obnoxious and um,
okay, you gotta do it.
right. It's like this. It has to be like the right setting, the right mood.
You gotta tell
So
me to leave. It's like, okay, can you guys leave for 5 minutes? Like, hey, like
hey, can
just
you
kind
guys
of,
just go away so we can?
just like when the guys head into the like, just say it's like a family. Just like when the guys head into the bathroom, hey, you guys are gonna you guys leave for like 5 minutes. Just come up with a BS excuse. Just say you like forgotten, just forgot something, or like just bring the kids with you. Just leave the what the wife. Just leave them at the table. No, it's not that bad. Just take the kids away. Take the kids to the bathroom. Just
Yeah,
next. I don't. I'm not really gonna take a piss just for 5 minutes, so I can do this
just let
alone.
me do my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I should have done that, but I did not. But what we did was when we went back home, that's where I asked, and I remember she was like, she was turned around, she was looking at the mirror. I think she had like something in her hair or something. And she was just like trying to fix it, and that's when I got on my knee and I asked. I wasn't as nervous because it was something that I wanted to do, and I felt confident about the outcome. So I was like, let's just do it. Let's go for it. And sure enough, it worked out. So here we are. Now we're getting married in a week. Well, not in a week, in a few weeks, but we're leaving in a week to get married. It's exciting.
Yeah, that's the thing about marriage. I can hopefully you guys won't have any problems with your marriage. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
And along with the South Korea trip. Actually, one more thing. I
Sure.
keep forgetting this. Where in South Korea are you guys planning on going? Is it like Seoul, Busan, Incheon?
It's gonna be in Seoul. Yeah, it's gonna be in Seoul.
So she's from South Korea. Like she was born in South Korea, or is just the parents from there?
Born and raised there, and then she came over to Canada. I don't know, maybe like a little more than 5 years
Okay.
ago. Yeah.
Well, that's going to be the end of the open talk for February 2021 conversation. This is the first open talk conversation. Hopefully, we get to do more where we just kind of talk about kind of the career perspective from the streamers, along with kind of what's happening in the world and all the other stuff. Do you want to give any shout outs before we end off the podcast?
Uh, Shout out to Jane, my fiance, for agreeing to marry with me because that's awesome for anyone to like put up with me. Shout out to the band Red Hand Denial. Shout out to my Twitch community, the Dang Gang, which I'm wearing a little sweater of right now. Great people, super amazing and loving and supportive people. It's always good vibes with them. Um, yeah, and shout out to I don't know any of my social medias for making me look cooler than I actually am.
Well, that's going to be the end of the podcast, the Game Takes podcast. Thank you guys for watching on YouTube. If you guys want to check out the other videos, it's going to be the other 43 episodes beforehand. Along with this one, it will be on the Gamer Takes playlist on the channel. That's going to be it. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.
Bye.